So when you open Maya, this is how it looks. Okay. We have this little grid over here. And if you want to zoom in, you can definitely use your middle mouse button to scroll in and out. Okay. Then you have Alt plus left mouse button. If you click on Alt on your keyboard and left mouse button and rotate around, you will be able to just rotate the grid. Okay. Actually, the grid is not rotating. What's rotating is the camera. So this is actually a 3D viewport. This is a full 3D space and we are looking into it through a camera. Okay. So when we press Alt plus left mouse button, we actually rotate the camera. Okay. The grid is actually not moving. It looks like it's moving, but it's not. Okay. So this grid lets us know what is the center of a 3D space. Okay. If you're far away somewhere, you can press F on the keyboard and you will jump back near the grid. Okay. Tushar, you can watch the recording. Okay. The people joined on time, so you were a little bit late. You can watch the recording. Basically, I was just talking about navigation controls. So I will just explain those. You can press you can click on your middle mouse button, rotate up and down, then Alt plus left mouse button to rotate the viewport. So these are the two things we talked about. So you can see when I scroll the middle mouse button, we zoom in steps. Like we are not able to zoom in smoothly. So if you want to zoom into it smoothly, you can press Alt, right mouse button and drag your mouse left and right and you will see how smoothly we can zoom in. So there are two ways of zooming in. Middle mouse button scroll up and down and right mouse button to zoom in and out and Alt left mouse button to rotate. So don't worry about the shortcuts. I will send a document so anyone who is new can follow that. Okay. So right now we have seen these three things. We can zoom in, zoom out, we can rotate. Now there is something known as panning. So I can press Alt, middle mouse button, and again drag my mouse left and right, and you can see I can go left and right on the viewport like this. Okay. So this is the most important thing to get familiar with navigation. Once that is clear, then everything else will be much more easier for everyone. So like today after class, make sure to practice this. I will send the list of shortcuts. So you don't have to memorize them right now. Okay. All right. So this might look like it's so difficult, but it's not. It's actually very nicely divided into everything. You can, like you guys remember, I've talked about rigging, animation, and all of those things. So if I go over here on the left side, you can see modeling is written right now. So when you open Maya, by default, we have modeling on. Okay, that's because all the modeling related tools are visible to you. You can see we have this mesh, edit mesh, mesh tools, mesh display. All of those things are specifically for modeling. Now, if I go to this drop-down list and I click on rigging, you will see the options change here. Now we have skeleton, skin, deform, constrain, control, all of these things visible. Now these options are completely related to rigging. Then we have animation. So again, the options keep on changing. So this is really good because everything is properly divided. So you will be looking at things that are important for you, not other tools which you will not be using right now. Okay. So this is the drop down list. You can like change and see it, but make sure to be on modeling. Okay. Then you can see lots of icons here. So these are actually tools. Here we have some meshes. I will be showing that. These are the tools, the modeling tools. Now, these are just a visual representation of the tools that we have here. So like these are the tools that you will be using often. So that's why Maya has created this shelf where all the tools which we use often are situated. Okay. We can also customize this shelf. So I will be showing that also later on. You can see we have so many shelves. We have curves and surfaces, sculpting, rigging, animation, rendering, FX, and so on. We only need poly modeling right now. We don't have to worry about other things. Okay. Okay, so we have seen the viewport, we have seen the shelf, we have seen this drop down list. Now you see something over here, like there is a list and some things are written here. So this is our outliner. So outliner basically allows us to access all the things we have in our scene. Right now the scene is empty. What we have here are the default things that are always there in the scene. So this is the uh, you can see PERSP is written on it. So this is short for perspective. Okay. This is the camera we are using. We also have top, front, and side. So we'll be seeing that. Let me show you. So if you press space bar, you will see your viewport will get divided into 4 viewports. So it's not like that you have 4 different viewports. The viewport is one only, but we are seeing through 4 different cameras. We have the perspective view here, we have the top view, front view, and the side view. Okay. So let me load an object. So let's take this. This is a cube. Okay. You can see it's visible like this, full 3D. We can rotate around it. But in other camera views, it looks like it's 2D. We don't see any volume, even if we zoom in. Why? Because this is known as an orthographic view. So orthographic view doesn't allow any perspective to be visible. Now, this is the view that we will be using a lot when we're creating our models because we have to keep the measurements intact. Okay. So this will get clear, but basically we are not able to see the proper volumes because we are perpendicularly looking at 90 degrees at this object. Okay. This is completely 90-degree in front view. That's why we don't see this kind of structure. Now, if you try rotating around this viewport, it will say orthographic views are currently locked. We can unlock it, but it has to be remain locked. Otherwise, uh, the actual use of it becomes unnecessary. Okay. So don't try to like change it. Keep it at default. Now, in these viewports also, you can zoom in, zoom out. You can press Alt, middle mouse button to pan. You can press Alt plus right mouse button to smoothly zoom in. What you cannot do is rotate, which we do with Alt plus left mouse button. So you can see that will not work. Okay. Now the thing is when you open all these viewports, you maybe not want to see all of them. You want to get back to your main viewport. How do you do that? You just have to press space bar again and you will be back here. Now, if I have this one selected, you can see when I'm selecting these viewports, we see a highlight box. This little white line that I'm seeing here, like you can like see it in all the boxes. Okay. If I have this box selected and if I press space bar, this one will open up. So we don't want that. We want this perspective one to be open. So make sure to click on that and then press space bar. And then you will have it properly opened. Okay. Now you don't always have to press spacebar to get into this view. We have these options here. You see this second one, it has these 4 squares. If you click on that, you will see the same thing happens again. Okay. And this first one is specifically for the perspective view. If you click on that, you will always get into perspective view. So even if you have something else selected, it will take you to the perspective view. Okay. So when we press space bar, we get to see 4 cameras. Now there is an option to see only 2 cameras. That we get by this third option. You can see only 2 boxes are here. So if I click on that, we are now seeing 2 cameras. We see the perspective and we see the front view. This is the one you will be working majority of times with when you're modeling anything. Okay. Even when you're animating, You might load your references in this viewport and work in this one. Okay. Okay, so we can obviously get out of it by pressing spacebar again. All right, so we have seen how to zoom in, zoom out, rotate. We have seen other cameras, but how do we select and move the object? That is something that we haven't seen. So let's see that. So by default, we have this select tool on. Okay, that means you can click on this and it will be selected, but nothing will happen. You can see when I click on it, it is highlighted here and this area changes. When nothing is selected, if I click on the viewport, nothing is selected. So this area seems empty. But when we click on the cube, we can see some information here. This is known as the channel box. Okay. You can see translate X, Y, Z, rotate X, Y, Z, and scale X, Y, Z. We also have this visibility option. So we will talk about this. But first, let's see our move tools. So right now we have seen the selection tool. Now we cannot move with the selection tool. So what we have to do is, you see this fourth option here? This is known as the move tool. If you just take your mouse and hover over it without selecting it, Maya will show you the uh, like what a tool does and the name of the tool. Okay. So I'm going to click on that. And as soon as I click on it, I see this like three arrows, three different colored arrows coming out of it. So if I click over here and if I start like dragging the mouse, you can see I'm actually moving the whole thing. The whole object is moving around. And you can see, look at this channel box, okay? Right now it is 0. If I move the cube, you can see some values are coming here. Why? Because it is noting down the value of how much you're moving it. Right now, I moved it by selecting this little square in between. So that's why we have values in both X, Y, Z, right? But let's say you just want to move it in one axis. These X, Y, Z, these are known as axes, okay? So let's say you just want to move it up and down. You don't want to move it in uh, all the axes, right? So how do you do that? You can see if I hover the mouse over this arrow, it becomes yellow. So if I click on it, you can see it is now completely yellow. That means I have this arrow selected. Now this is translate Y. Okay. Ranjit, okay, I understand you know 3D. uh, all right. So yeah. So you can see I have selected the Y axis and it's now highlighted. How do we know which axis is selected? Whenever you select an axis, it will turn yellow in color. If you don't want to select anything, you can click on this little middle box and you can see the actual colors of it. The y-axis is green, the x-axis is red, and the z-axis is blue. So now, like these axes, we have talked about it in school, right? Uh, like in maths, we have talked about x and y axis, which tells us about 2 dimensions. We have also talked about the z depth, which gives the volume. Okay, so it's exactly like that. It's nothing different. Everyone has heard of XYZ in school. So if you guys have taken, I think like in class 10th chemistry also, we are taught to plot graphs. We have these graph sheets and we have X and Y axis. So we are given values and we plot those values and we create curves out of it, right? So whenever we're plotting those things in a graph, we are given two values. We have an X value and we have a Y value. Let me show this to you. Like maybe some of you might have forgotten it. Let me show this through a whiteboard. 1 second. Let me share the screen. Okay. So you can see like the graphs were like this, right? We have x-axis here, we have y-axis here. Okay, so we were given values. So let's say they will give you x value as 3.2, y value as 2.1. Okay, let's say they've given that value. So if you were to plot this graph, you will have, like, you will be drawing the numbers like this. Okay, and now we know that we need x to be 3.2. So 3.2 will be between 3 and 4, right? So we will hold this area, and we know that y has to be 2.1. So we'll go straight up in that line, and slightly above 2.1, we will create a dot. Just like that, we might be given a list of all these values and we will draw these points out. Now, when we connect them all together, we end up with a curve, right? Now, you don't have to connect those, but yeah, basically what I wanted to show you is that uh, we were given x and y coordinates in order to draw these points. So just like that in Maya, let me share the Maya screen. So just like that in Maya, we have these coordinates. Okay, if I go over here and try to type values, you will see the box will shift. So let's say in translate x, I type 1.2. You can see the box has shifted. If I type 3.4 in translate y, you will see it shifts again. And in translate z, I'll type another value. So you can see basically it is like plotting points. Of course, you don't have to match it completely with a graph, but basically this is how it works. Okay. Dhritman, actually, in Maya, y-axis is the up axis. In different softwares, it is different. So in Substance Painter also, y-axis is up. In 3ds Max, z-axis is up. So like I don't know why, it's always different in different softwares. Okay. In Blender also, I think the up axis is z-axis. I'm not sure. But yeah, in Maya and Substance Painter, which is for texturing, it's always y-axis, which is up. Okay. So don't worry about which axis being higher. Like we obviously don't have to note down these values. It's just there and we can use them. So it's not a problem. Okay. Yeah, in Blender, Z axis is up. Yeah, I think Unity also has this. Maybe Unreal too, I'm not sure. So yeah, as you can see, whenever like I typed a value, the box moved around, right? Now, let's say I don't want the box to be here. I want it back in the middle. How do I do that? I will go to the translate options here. I will select all of them. I'll type 0 and press enter. And you will see our box is back where it was in the center. Now, we actually typed values and move it around. We don't have to do that. I just wanted to show you that we all have seen these things through school. So like, so that you guys can familiarize with it. Okay. Now, of course, we don't use the axis is here to move things around. We will be using the arrows. So let's say I want to move it up. I will select this translate y axis and I'll move it up. You can see you just have to select it and drag your mouse up or down. Okay. Ranjit, yes. Right now we are not covering that. Everyone will get confused. I understand you know 3D, so it's okay. I will be covering everything. Don't worry. We are starting slowly. We don't want everyone to get scared. Okay. So as you can see, translate Y is letting us go up and down. Then we have translate X, this red one. We can go like this. And then we have Z axis, which will move it in front. Okay. So you can see whenever you select a particular axis arrow, you move it in that axis only. It's not like if you try to move it by selecting translate Z, you will not get a value in X and Y. It will only move with the arrow that you're selecting. Okay. Unless you have this, you can see this little blue box. It's getting highlighted when I'm hovering. So if I click on that, now that is selected. And if I move it around, all the axes change because the box is moving in all the axes. Okay. Now you also see these squares here. So you might be thinking what they do. So let's talk about those. So let's see this. We have y-axis here and z-axis here. So y is green, z is blue, and in between we are seeing red. If I click on that and if I try to move it, you will see only y and z is moving. X-axis is not changing at all. Let me show you. Like if I move it, it seems like it's moving in all the axes, but if I rotate around, you will see it is constrained to the middle. It's basically not moving forward. When I select this little square and move it around, we only see the changes in y and z. For some reason, if you want to constrain it like that, you can easily do it. Let me zero it down. Let's see another box here, this one. So you can see, if I move this around, we will only see changes in the z-axis and the x-axis. See, only x and z is changing. And same thing here. We have the y-axis and x-axis. If I select this box, only that will change. Okay. So there are lots of ways of controlling the axis movements. Okay. So now we have covered the translation. This is basically known as translation because you're moving it around like this. And the shortcut for that is W. Okay. Now the second thing we'll see is rotation. So the shortcut for rotation is E. If I press E, you will see the manipulator has changed. This is basically known as the manipulator. And if I press E, the circles appear. But if I press W, we see the translations. You can also get rotation from here. If you select the second option, click on that, you will see all these circles around. Okay, so this will allow us to rotate the object. Till now, we have only moved it around, but we can also rotate them. So again, we see the same colors, red, green, and blue, and we also see this yellow color outside. That's because that one is actually selected. If I select this yellow line and if I move it around, you see rotation in all the axes. Now, let's say we don't want that. We just want to rotate it in the x-axis, this red one. If I click on that and if I pull the mouse down while selecting it, you can see I'm rotating it, right? It's rotating like this. I can rotate it down and up. You can see when we go down, we're going positive. When we go up, we go negative. Okay. So right now we saw the rotation in x-axis. Let's see y-axis rotation. If I click on that and I rotate it, you will see now the box is rotating like this. And you see that the value changes in rotate y in the channel box. Now, let's say you rotated something and you want to get back to uh, your original rotation. You can obviously come over here and type 0, but there is a way to undo things. So you can press Control plus Z on the keyboard and you will see whatever movement you make, if you press Control plus Z, it will undo it. Okay. So you can see I can rotate around and undo that. You don't have to constantly go here and type 0 to go back. Okay. Then we also have the Z axis, this blue one. I'll click on that and I'll rotate it. You can see now it's rotating in the Z axis. This outer one, which is blue in color, allows us to rotate it in all the axes. Okay. So don't worry about that one. When you're practicing, focus on these three. Okay. Okay, so we have seen rotation as well. Now, there is a way to scale things as well. So R is the shortcut for that. I'll press R and now you can see the manipulator has changed again. You can also select it from here. Like first one is for the move tool, second one is for rotation, and the last one is for the scale. Okay. So you see this little box here, which is yellow in color because that's the one which is selected. Okay. If I select that with left mouse button and drag my mouse left and right, you will see I'm scaling it up and down uniformly. Now this is important. Uniformly because you can see the shape of this box is not changing, right? It is just becoming bigger or smaller. Now, let's say we want to make the box longer, right? So how do we do that? We can actually select this red axis one and we can stretch it out. You can see now the box is getting longer. Now if I select the Z axis one, now this will make the box wider. And if you want it to be thicker, you can select the Y axis and move it up. Okay, so this is how we can control the shape without actually getting completely inside the components. Okay, I'll talk about components in a minute. But yeah, this is how we basically scale things up. So when you're selecting a particular axis, only that axis will get scaled. But if you want to scale it uniformly, you have to click on this little blue box and only then scale it. See the value here? By default, it is 111. Unlike translation and rotation, translation and rotation has 0 values, but scale has 111 value. If you go over here and type 0, it will not be visible because it's so small. It has now completely disappeared. So it has to be 1. Okay. And all the axes are 1. Only then the box will be uniform sized, right? Now, when I scale it up, you can see all the values scale with the same amount. But if I select, let's say, x-axis and I scale it up, you can see only x-axis is changing. If I do with it z, you can see only z is changing. And if I do it with y, only y is changing. Okay. So this is how we scale the objects. So these controls are simple. You have W, E, R right beside each other. Okay. So you can just select them. Q is for the select tool. So you can select but not do anything. With W, you can translate. With E, you can rotate. With R, you can scale. Okay. So we also have this visibility option here. Of course, it is on, only then it is visible. If you click over here, you can type 0. Okay, I will type 0 here and press enter. And now you can see it is off. And if I type 1, it will be on. So 0 is for off, 1 is for on. Okay, this is one way of hiding objects. Another way is by pressing Control plus H. So I will be pressing Control on the keyboard plus H to hide it. Now the selection is hidden. Okay, so I can go in the outliner and press Shift plus H to unhide it. So to hide it, you will press Control plus H. To unhide it, you will press Shift plus H. Okay, you can also hide and unhide it from here if you don't want to use the shortcut. But shortcut is much easier because it's faster. So later on, you can, like as you start working with it, all of these shortcuts will be memorized. So till you memorize them, you can use this option here if you want to hide or unhide anything. Okay. All right. So we have seen a cube. Let's bring a sphere. We can also bring a cylinder. We can bring a cone and a disk. And we can bring even more objects. Not all are visible here. If we go to create option here, the third one, and if we go to polygon primitives, the second one, and you see this this thick line here. If you click on that, it will be undocked. That means you can keep it open. and you can bring in more objects. We have a torus, a pyramid, a prism. So these are very basic shapes. There's a reason why these shapes exist, because we need a base in order to start building our models. Okay. So let's say if we were building a, like we will start building a bottle soon. So everyone knows how a bottle is or how a glass is. So what do you think will I be using? Will I be using a sphere, a cube, or a cylinder? Out of all these three, which object should I be using as a starting point? Cylinder, right? Okay. So you have to think about what you want to make, and according to that, you take these base meshes. These allow us to get into the base shape quickly and start building our more complex shape. Okay. Yes, cube can also work if the bottle is cube shaped. Some bottles are designer and they're shaped differently. So in that case, you can use a cube. But if it's a conventional bottle, then of course cylinder will be the best option. Cube will be unnecessarily difficult if you want a cylindrical bottle, right? So you have to think about the base shape, and according to that, we take the base meshes. Okay. So you can see all of the things that we have open in our viewport, all of them are visible in our outliner. Now, this is important because sometimes we have scene filled with lots of objects. Okay. So let's say you want to select a particular object, and if your scene is very large, it becomes a little bit difficult to find that particular object. But with outliner, you can easily find it out. You can properly customize it. You can group them. So everything is much more clearer in the outliner. Okay. So you can see all of these objects have, like, of course, sphere, cube, and cylinder is written on it. But along with that, we have P written in front. So P stands for polygons. Okay. That's why, like, by default, Maya names it like this. Okay. Let's delete that. So I will take a sphere and we will see more details about it. Till now, we have only seen it as a normal object. But you see all of these lines going all over it. Like when the class started, I talked about it, right? Like we have all these squares going along. Now, these squares are known as polygons, okay? We can select them individually and change their shapes. So how to do that? You have to select your object, okay? Make sure your object is selected. Right click on your mouse and you will see a bunch of options. So this is important. You have to make sure to keep selecting the left mouse button. If you let go, the options will go away. Okay. So make sure to keep on selecting your right mouse button and you will see a couple of options here. We like the main important ones are face, vertex, and edge. Okay. So if I go to vertex, like how do I select that? I have the right mouse button. So I just have to hover over it. You will see it will turn blue and I will let go. And now you can see uh, the color of the lines have changed. They are now blue in color and we see these pink points. All of these points appear wherever there is intersection. We have this vertical line. We also have this horizontal line. So wherever these vertical and horizontal lines are intersecting, we are getting a point there. This point is known as a vertex. Okay. You can see when I hover over it, it is looking red in color. So if you click on it, you will see it will appear yellow in color. Okay. And right now it is only selected. If I press W, you will see our move tool appears and we can actually move it around. I can select more vertices like this. See, a single point is known as a vertex, and like if you have multiple points selected, it will be known as vertices. Okay, just a plural for that. So you can see I can pull this all out I can also rotate this. I can also scale this selection that I have. So these are like, this is very important. This is how we adjust the shape of all the objects. At the base, everything is made up of points in Maya or any 3D software. Okay. So when we have 2 points together, we end up creating a line, which is known as an edge. If you have 3 lines, you will end up with a triangle. If you have 4 lines, you will end up with a quadrilateral. Okay. A face which has 4 sides. So how do we access a face? Again, I will right click and I'll click on face. And now you can see all the faces are getting highlighted. If I click on this face, you can see I can move it out, I can move it in, I can rotate it, and I can scale it as well. Okay. And just like that, we can also select these lines. How do we select them? Again, we right click, we hover over edge and we let go. And you can see again, all the edges are getting highlighted now. So if I double click on this edge, you can see I have the full selection. If I click on it once, I only select one edge, but if I double click on it, I have the full edge selection and I can move it out. I can move a single edge also. Okay, so let's go back to whiteboard. 1 second, let me open that. Okay, so the whiteboard is here. So we have seen this in school also. Okay, we like when we study about polygons is not something which is new. Everyone has studied about it in schools, right? So a polygon is built up of 3 points. You can see I have drawn 3 points here. If I connect these points together, I end up with a triangle. If I draw 4 points, I end up with a square. Okay. So in school, we were taught that a single point is obviously known as a point. Okay. And in Maya, it is known, not only in Maya, but in all 3D softwares, it is known as a vertex. Okay. A point cannot be rotated or scaled. It can only be translated. Okay. Now, when we have 2 points together, we can connect them and create a line, right? So when you connect 2 points together, you end up with a line. In maths, it is known as line. In 3D, it is known as an edge. 1 second. Let me erase this. So yeah, it is known as an edge. I'm actually making this with the mouse, so it's not very clear, but yeah. Okay, so when we have a single point, it's just a single point known as a vertex. When we have 2 points, we connect them together and create a line, which is also known as an edge. When we have 3 points, we connect them together and we end up with a polygon. This is obviously a triangle. So everybody knows that we need at least 3 lines to create a polygon. You cannot create a polygon with 2 lines, right? These have to connect together in order to create a proper polygon. Okay. So triangles is something we do use, but I will talk about that later on. Triangles are something that we don't always want. What we want is 4-sided faces. That means a square. So this is obviously known as a square in maths. And in 3D softwares, it's known as a quad or just a face. We also just name it as a face, a four-sided face, and so on. Okay. Now, of course, in maths, we also talked about polygons, which have more than four sides, more than three sides. So if you have five sides, you will end up with a, what is it called? Uh, I'm forgetting the name for that. Does anybody remember what a five-sided polygon is known as? There is a particular name for it. Maybe nobody remembers. Well, oh, no, no. Hexagon is for six sides. I remember the six sides one, but somehow I forgotten five side name. So pentagon. Yes, correct. Pentagon. Okay. So pentagon is for five, hexagon is for six, heptagon is for seven, and so on. So in 3D, any face which has more than four sides is completely forbidden. Okay, you don't want any face which has more than four sides. If you have it, you will face issues. That's why it is forbidden. Okay, later on, I will be showing why it is forbidden when we'll see the rendering. Okay, in the demo classes only. So I will talk about that also. But this is a rule of modeling that you have to remember. Doesn't matter which software you're working on, modeling rules are same. So never work with any face which has five sides. Always work with faces which has four sides. Okay. Let's go back to Maya. Okay. So we saw vertex, edge, and face. So you can see this object is filled with quads. Okay, or four-sided faces. So this is good. This is what we want. Any of the base objects never have any face which has five sides. But triangles are fine. Okay. Triangles are something which we try to avoid because it causes issues later on. Now, what issues? We will again be seeing that in the rendering classes. But we tend to avoid triangles and only add it in areas which are not straight away visible. Basically, you always want four-sided faces. Okay. So is that part clear for everyone, which we saw in the whiteboard? Is there any confusion? Were you able to relate it with your forgotten memories of maths? Okay, Dhritaman, you have confusion? Okay, okay, all right, all right. Oh, guys, you were typing no, so I was thinking it's not clear. All right, cool. So when you understand polygons like this, it becomes much easier. Okay. Usually people, what they do is they just let you know that there is a face, there is a vertex, there is an edge, and you just have to understand that. But when you connect it with something that you've already studied, it becomes more understandable and less scary. Okay. This is why I just showed all of that.